Meaningless when the things that once felt important start to feel empty, when life itself begins to resemble a machine operating without purpose, without reason. Albert Camus felt this too, but instead of drowning in despair, he found an answer that can change the way you see life forever. For thousands of years, humanity had an anchor, a grand story that made sense of everything. Every birth, every struggle, every heartbreak had meaning, because it was part of a divine plan. Life was difficult, but at least it had direction. Suffering was not pointless. It was a test, a lesson, or even a step towards something greater. Death itself wasn't the end, but merely a doorway to another existence, a reunion with something higher. People found comfort in this belief. They looked at the vastness of the universe and saw purpose. They looked at their pain and saw meaning. It was a certainty that made life bearable. But then everything changed. The march of science reshaped the world. Charles Darwin proposed that life was not crafted by divine hands, but shaped by the slow, indifferent process of evolution. The Big Bang Theory suggested that the universe was not created with us in mind. It was simply the result of physical forces expanding and unfolding according to mathematical laws, not moral ones. Disease, natural disasters, suffering, these were not punishments or tests. They were random, chaotic, meaningless, and as these scientific explanations grew stronger, the old stories began to fade. Religion lost its grip, and along with it, humanity lost something profound: certainty. Friedrich Nietzsche saw it coming. He famously declared, "God is dead." But this was not a victory chant. It was a warning. He did not mean that some divine being had literally perished. He meant that people had stopped believing faith, which answered structured society. Morality and human purpose was crumbling. And when faith sowed us certainty for centuries, people had relied on religion to answer the big questions: why? Why are we here? What is our purpose? What happens after we die? But now those answers were gone, and in their absence, only silence remained. A cold, indifferent universe stretched endlessly, offering nothing, no purpose, no grand design, no final destination. This was not just an intellectual crisis, it was deeply personal, because when meaning is stripped away, so is stability. People were left staring into the void, trying to make sense of their own existence. If there's no higher purpose, then why get up in the morning? Why go to work? Why chase dreams, fall in love, build families, or strive for anything, if in the end it all dissolves into nothing? For many, this realization was terrifying. Some fell into despair, others clung desperately to illusions, some numb themselves with distractions, chasing money, status, pleasure, anything to avoid facing the terrifying truth that maybe life is utterly meaningless. And that's where Albert Camus comes in. He stood at the edge of this existential crisis and refused to look away. He asked the same terrifying questions. He stared into the abyss, but instead of surrendering to despair, he found something unexpected, a way forward, a way to not only exist in a meaningless world, but to find joy in it. Humans have an unshakable need for meaning. It's hardwired into us. From the moment we are old enough to ask questions, we demand answers. Why are we here? What's our purpose? Is there something greater beyond all this? We look at the vastness of the universe, the stars stretching endlessly into infinity, and we expect it to respond, to tell us that we matter, that we belong, that our struggles, our joys, our love, none of it is in vain. But the universe stays silent. No voice speaks from the void. No divine script appears in the sky. No cosmic force reassures us that everything will be okay. Albert Camus called this the absurd. This clash between our desperate need for meaning and a universe that refuses to provide one. It's like screaming into an empty canyon, waiting for an answer that will never come. And that silence, it's unbearable. So most people try to escape it. The three ways people react to the absurd when confronted with the meaninglessness of life. People tend to fall into three common traps. Denial, clinging to artificial meaning. Some people refuse to accept that life has no inherent meaning. Instead, they latch on to ready-made answers. Religion, political ideologies, cultural narratives. They create comforting stories, believing that some higher power or system has a grand plan, and while this can provide stability, it often demands blind faith, ignoring the reality that the universe isn't obligated to give us meaning. Nihilism, falling into despair. Others go in the opposite direction. If life has no meaning, they argue, then nothing matters. Love, beauty, morality, it's all an illusion. This is nihilism, the belief that life is utterly pointless. And with this belief often comes depression, cynicism, and even self-destruction. If nothing matters, then why bother doing anything at all? Escape, numbing ourselves with distractions. Then there's the most common response. Distraction. People drown out the existential void with work, money, entertainment, pleasure. They chase career, success, social status, endless entertainment, or fleeting pleasures, anything to avoid confronting the terrifying reality that deep down they don't know why they're doing any of it. Look around. How many people do you see endlessly scrolling on their phones, partying without joy, chasing wealth, but never feeling satisfied? They're not truly living. They're running from the void, from the silence, from the fear that maybe, just maybe, life doesn't come with a pre-written purpose. But Camus refused to run. He looked the absurd straight in the eye and did something no one expected. He embraced it, and in doing so, he found a fourth option, one that could lead not just to survival, but to real happiness. Camus found his answer in an ancient Greek myth. The story of Capus, a tale that had existed for centuries but had never been looked at in the way Camus saw it. Capus was not just any man, he was a king, cunning and rebellious, someone who refused to bow to fate, had tricked the gods, escaped the underworld, and tried to outmaneuver death itself. He was clever, too clever, and the gods had no choice but to punish him in a way that would break his spirit forever. His punishment, an eternity of meaningless labor. Every day, Capus was forced to push a massive boulder up a steep mountain, and just when he neared the top, when it seemed like he might finally complete his task, the boulder would roll back down to the bottom, erasing all his effort again and again, endlessly, with no reward, no escape. It was the ultimate curse. The gods knew that physical suffering could be endured, but hopelessness, that's what destroys our mind. What could be more hopeless than a task that would never end, never change, and never mean anything? Most people look at this story and shudder. It seems like the perfect metaphor for the futility of life itself. We wake up, we work, we chase dreams, we struggle, we lose, we try again, and in the end we all meet the same fate of death. No matter how much we accomplish, no matter how far we climb, everything resets. Generations before us have worked, built, and strived only for their achievements to fade with time. Monuments crumble. Names are forgotten. Civilizations rise and fall. If life is just an endless cycle of struggle leading to nothing, what's the point? That's why many see Capus as a tragic figure. His suffering is our suffering. His punishment is our daily grind, our unanswered questions, our endless search for meaning in a universe that does not respond. But Camus, he saw something different, something that flipped the entire meaning of the story upside down. What if Capus is not suffering? What if Capus is actually free? It sounds absurd at first. How could anyone be free in a situation like his? But here's what Camus realized the moment Capus accepts his fate. When he stops resisting, stops wishing for things to be different, becomes more powerful than the gods who cursed him. The gods wanted to break him. They wanted him to suffer under the weight of hopelessness. But what if he simply refused to suffer? Imagine Capus standing at the bottom of the mountain, watching his shoulder roll back down, but instead of cursing the gods or falling into despair, he just shrugs, takes a deep breath, and starts pushing again. No complaints, no self-pity, no need for a grand reason. What if? As he walked back down to retrieve his boulder, he smiled. Camus wrote, "One must imagine Capus happy," and that single line changes everything, because it means we are not crushed by meaninglessness unless we choose to be. It means that life's lack of inherent purpose is not a curse, it's an opportunity. Camus believed that we are all Capus. We wake up every morning, we go to work, we chase our ambitions, we fall, we get up, we build relationships, create ease, and try to carve out our place in the world. And yes, ultimately, it all resets generations from now. Nothing we do may be remembered, but does that mean what we do is worthless? Only if we choose to see it that way. Here's the key: once we accept that life has no grand cosmic meaning, we are free to create our own. Think about it. If life had some ultimate predetermined meaning, we'd be trapped by it. We wouldn't be free. We'd just be following a script. But because there is no fixed meaning, we get to decide what matters to us. Instead of waiting for the universe to hand us a purpose, we realize we don't need one. We stop searching for some ultimate justification for our existence and start living for the experience itself, the beauty of the absurd. This is what embracing the absurd really means. It's not about pretending life has some deep cosmic purpose. It's not about falling into despair and saying nothing matters. So why try? It's about revolting against the absurd by choosing to live anyway, not because we expect some grand reward, not because we believe in an afterlife or fate or some divine script, but simply because we can, because joy is possible, even in a meaningless universe, because we can choose to love, to create, to laugh, to explore, not for some higher reason, but just because it's worth it. In Themoment, finding freedom in the absurd. Instead of seeing life as a curse, we see it as a playground, a space where we are free to explore, to build, to fail, to experience everything fully without needing some external justification. And that's why Camus is happy. He knows his task will never end. He knows the boulder will always roll back down, but he pushes anyway, not because it will lead somewhere, but because he chooses to. And when we stop asking what's the point and start saying why not, that's when we truly become free. That's when life becomes lighter, brighter, more exciting, because instead of looking for a meaning that doesn't exist, we start creating one for ourselves, and in that moment, we win the game of the absurd. See, Mo did not just stop at philosophy. He believed absurdisms, not just something to think about, but something to live. It was not about sitting around contemplating the meaninglessness of existence. It was about embracing it, turning it into fuel for action. But how do we actually do that? Here are 3 practical ways to live an absurdist life. Most of us spend our lives trapped in overthinking. What if I fail? What if things don't work out? What if or why makes? We citate, we analyze. We wait for the right time. But here's the truth. The universe does not care. You could sit there worrying about every possible outcome, but their reality is none of it matters as much as you think it does. Lost your job. So what? The world keeps turning. Another opportunity will come. Failed at something. Who cares? The universe is not keeping score. Made a mistake. Welcome to being human. Move on. Camus teaches us life is absurd, unpredictable, and chaotic. Instead of wasting energy on overthinking, just take action, because in the end, whether you succeed or fail, the boulder is going to roll back down anyway. So why stress over it? Because when you stop searching for meaning, you start truly experiencing life. Most people think meaninglessness is a reason to despair, but Camus saw it as an opportunity. Since life has no inherent meaning, you are completely free to enjoy it on your own terms. Think about it. When you laugh, even though life is meaningless, you are rebelling against the absurd. When you love, knowing everything fades, you are rebelling against the absurd. When you create, knowing that nothing lasts forever, you're rebelling against the absurd. Every act of joy is a form of defiance. Instead of sitting around feeling lost, rebel by embracing life anyway. Laugh loudly, love deeply, explore without needing a reason. Most of us hesitate before making big decisions. Should I start that business? Should I take that risk? Should I travel, learn something new, or follow my passion? And our brain always responds with a list of reasons why we shouldn't. It's risky. It might not work. It's not practical. What if I fail? But Camus would tell us, flip the question. Instead of asking why should I ask, why not start that project? Why not take that risk? Why not live boldly? Because at the end of the day, the boulder is going to roll back down no matter what. So why not have fun with it? Camus' absurdism is not about surrendering to meaninglessness. It's about revolting against it by choosing to live, to act, to experience everything without needing some grand purpose. And once you start seeing life through this lens, everything changes. You stop waiting, you stop hesitating, you stop worrying about things that don't matter, and instead you start living. From the moment we are born, we are told that life has a purpose. Society, religion, culture, everyone gives us answers. This is the right path. This is what you must do. This is what will give your life meaning. And so we spend our life searching, looking for meaning in relationships, looking for meaning in beliefs, ideologies, and achievements. But what the truth is this: there is no meaning not written in the stars, not waiting to be discovered, not hidden in some ancient text. At first, this might sound terrifying, but Camus saw it differently. If life has no meaning, then you are completely free from expectations, free from pressure, free from the burden of needing a reason to live. And in that freedom, you gain something extraordinary: the power to create your own meaning, not because the universe gives it to you, not because some higher force demands it, because you choose it. Camus' message is simple yet profound life. Fully laugh, loudly love, deeply create, explore, experience. Not because life has a purpose, but because you are alive. And that in itself is enough. One must imagine. Copus Happy Albert Camus. What do you think? Do you agree with Camus' view on life and meaning? Let me know in the comments if you found this video thought-provoking. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new upload. See you in the next one.